Today, I shall teach you chapter number 10 of your English textbook Bliss, The Price of Bananas, written by one of the noted and one of the most eminent literary personalities of English literature in India, Mulk Raj Anand. Now, before going into the text, I would like to give a brief note on the author himself so as to know him properly. Mulk Raj Anand was an Indian writer in English, noted for his depiction of the lives of the poorer castes in traditional Indian society. He is specifically known for his realistic and sympathetic representation of the poorer classes in India. He is also known as one of the most important founders of the English language Indian novel. He was born on 12th December 1905 in Peshawar, Pakistan, and died on September 28, 2004 at Pune, India. The son of a coppersmith, Anand, having graduated with honours from Punjab University in Lahore, pursued additional studies at the University of Cambridge, London. A prolific writer, Anand first gained wide recognition for his novels Untouchable, written in 1935, and Coolie, written in 1936. Among his other major works are The Village, written in 1939, The Sword and the Sickle, written in 1942, The Big Heart, written in 1945. He is often called India's Charles Dickens. Today, he is remembered for his 75 years long literary career that mirrors the trajectory of India's search for a just, equitable, and progressive society. Now, let us begin our chapter and find out what was the real cost of the bananas the vendor had to sacrifice. Now, girls, before going into the text, I would like to read the introductory portion of this chapter. Though the tone of the story is light-hearted, the author notes with sad concern the unkind and unjust behavior of the businessman towards the poor fruit vendor who had helped him to get back his cap. So I hope you have understood what is the story about. See, there are two main protagonists of the story. One is the poor fruit vendor and the other one is the rich businessman, the Sethji. So in this chapter, we will see and note the difference of attitudes of two different people coming from the two different classes of society in the same situation. So this was a little bit of the introduction of this chapter. Now let us begin with the text. I was on my way from Faizabad railway station to Lucknow. I had arrived at the station half an hour in advance of the time for the train's departure. Now, the text begins with I. So I is the writer himself. He is only the narrator of the story. Right? So we see that he is waiting at the station for his train to depart. I sat on a bench watching the monkeys frolicking on the trees and on the open platform. The monkeys descended now and then to collect half-sucked mango stones and the remainders of food from the platform. Now, what he's looking at, he is sitting on the bench and watching the activities, the naughty activities of the monkeys. As we know that the monkeys are funny at times, and so does the author also tells us about the funny activities of these monkeys. They are coming down and going up from the trees on the platform in search of food, and they are sometimes having the half-sucked mango stones and sometimes the scraps of food that are left over or left behind by the passengers on the platform. The younger monkeys are also there. They sat on the boughs of neem and tamarind trees, ready to jump after any food that may be visible. Now, there are younger monkeys also. They are not in the habit of coming down from the trees and going up on the trees, but they are sitting on the branches of the neem and tamarind trees. They are ready to jump whenever they see any piece of food on the platform. Just then, the train was announced by the ringing of the station bell. I concentrated on securing a seat for myself in the train. I got a window seat overlooking the platform. Some other passengers joined me in the compartment. So now here we find that this is typical of the passengers who wait at the platform and wait for the train. And when the train comes, they jump onto the train compartment to find a seat for themselves. And the same activity is done by the writer over here also. Now, he is accompanied by other passengers also in the compartment. So, we were all sweating from the rising heat of the summer. Now, it was summertime, as it is very evident from this sentence, and there was a lot of perspiration. Several passengers were busy filling up their earthen pitchers from a water pump. I was struck by the genius of a monkey in snatching away the loincloth of a pious person who was taking a bath under the pump. Now, girls, see, there are a lot of passengers on the platform waiting for the train, and some of the passengers got onto the train, and each and every passenger is engaged in different type of activities. So some passengers are trying to secure seats for themselves. Some of the passengers were busy filling water in their earthen pitchers from the pump. And now this author, the narrator of our story, was surprised by the activity of a specific monkey. What he was doing? The monkey was really naughty and funny in its character. He snatched away the loincloth of a pious person who was taking a bath under the pump. Now, let us know what is a loincloth. It is a single piece of cloth wrapped around the hips of men, generally in the hot countries. So, this was a pious man. Pious means holy person. And he was taking a bath under the pump, and his loincloth was snatched away. Literally, a great deal of general amusement was caused by this incident, and everybody, witnessed a very witty and amusing incident. The bather then requested the monkey to return his loincloth. Now, naturally, he had finished his bath, and later he requested the monkey to give him back his loincloth. The monkey was generous and threw it down from the neem tree at the man's feet. Now, at this time, at the plea or the appeal or the request of the pious person, this monkey, he understood something, I don't know, but he threw it down at the man's feet, and then he got his loincloth. While all this was going on, I noticed a gentleman came up to our compartment. He looked like a businessman. Now enters the second main protagonist of the story, the businessman. He was dressed in a white muslin dhoti, a delicate tunic, and an embroidered cap on his head. Now, apparent, his external appearance was um very much evident. Uh, it was showing, it was an expression of the fact that he was coming from an upper class of the society. A porter was carrying his luggage, which included a big steel trunk, several small baskets, and a brass jug. Now, he had a little bit of luggage with him, but he himself was not carrying all those luggage. The man was shouting at the porter to hurry up with the luggage. Suddenly, a monkey leaped down from the top of our compartment and snatched away the fine embroidered cap of the businessman. Now, see, this is the same monkey who had earlier literally snatched away the loincloth of the pious person. This monkey was really mischievous in nature. The monkey then climbed up the neem tree. "What have you done, monkey?" the businessman shouted in utter confusion. Now, this businessman was really not in the habit of such things, so he was very much annoyed and irritated, so he shouted at the monkey. His round and smug face was covered with perspiration. He was, very much confused, puzzled, and he had a face that showed a lot of pride. His round, he ran towards the tree over the pump and stood threatening the monkey. He was literally threatening the monkey so as to get back his embroidered cap. However, the more he shouted at the monkey, the remoter the monkey became. The monkey behaved in a different manner that was not at all expected by this businessman. It was the same monkey that had snatched the bather's loincloth. Now, I told you that this was the same naughty and funny monkey that had done the previous incident of snatching away the loincloth of the pious person who was bathing under the pump. The people on the platform were much amused by the plight of the businessman. Now, the people, those who were witnessing the incident, they were very much amused. He looked with a piteous and hopeless expression on his face. Now, the businessman was literally in a fix what to do and what not to do. And he was very much feeling helpless at this moment of time. Meanwhile, a fruit hawker had came forward, pushing his little cart. Now, the entry of of another important character of this story, and he is the fruit vendor, and he was having some fruits. He told the sage that he would rescue the cap. Now, at this helpless situation of this businessman, somebody came to his help and rescue. The businessman seemed slightly relieved. Now, the businessman, started to feel relief. The vendor went ahead, dangling a couple of bananas at the monkey with his right hand. Now, one of the favorite food or the fruits of the monkeys is the bananas. And so, this fruit vendor went to the monkey with a couple of bananas. He stretched out his left hand for the cap. The monkey seemed to hesitate. Now, this was a sort of deal going on between the fruit vendor and the monkey. In one hand, the fruit vendor wanted the cap of the businessman from the monkey, and in the other hand, by the right hand, he was to give him some bananas to eat. "Ow, ow, come down," the vendor coaxed. The monkey, he lifted the bananas higher up. Now, he wanted to persuade earnestly the monkey to come down and give the cap, and instead to take the bananas from him. The monkey responded by climbing down cautiously to a branch near the vendor. Now, the deal was okay with what was good for the monkey, and the monkey, thinking a little bit, he came down just near the vendor to give him the cap and take away the bananas from him. The whole platform became silent and waited with bated breath for the impossible to happen. Now, this was really very impossible. This was a situation nobody had expected earlier. So, very much anxiously, all the passengers, all the people, standing on the platform were witnessing something very unexpected to happen. The vendor called in a soft voice, "Ow, ow," to the monkey. Now he went on coaxing the monkey, persuaded him to come down and give the cap to him. The monkey, looking this side and that, accepted the bargain. Now the monkey realized that yes, this was a time when he can get those bananas in return of that cap. So he came down. He took over the bananas with his right hand and released the embroidered cap, slightly crumpled, with its left hand. So the impossible thing happened and it became something possible. So what happened? It took away the bananas, giving in return the cap to the fruit vendor. The monkey was happy, the fruit vendor was happy, and this businessman was relieved. The spectators shouted in praise. Everybody shouted in praise. Everybody appreciated the fruit vendor's intellect and intention. The fruit vendor came and humbly offered the Sethji his cap. Now the fruit vendor had done something unexpected, something very impossible. And the Sethji should have been very much grateful to this man. But let us see what happens later. The fruit vendor offered him his cap. "They are hungry," he said. The fruit vendor said he was really human in nature and he had understood the plight of these monkeys. He said, "They are hungry, so they disturb the passengers." So this was the, good mentality of this fruit vendor. And see, in return, what this Sethji said, he said, "Acha," and turned to go into the compartment. That was all he had to say, "Acha." He did not realize what literally was the plight of these monkeys and what the fruit vendor had to say. The vendor said, "Sethji, please give me 2 annas for the bananas which I had to offer to the monkey." Now, as we have seen, as we know the topic of this chapter, the price of the bananas. So now we see that the fruit vendor asked the price of bananas from this businessman, and that was only 2 annas. Will he get the price of the bananas? Will the Sethji be thankful or grateful enough to give him the price of bananas? Let us check it out. 2 annas. What impudence! Means what rudeness! 2 annas. The Sethji was very much surprised. Is the price of the bananas 2 annas? So much? Sethji shouted each word in disgust at the grimy fruit vendor. Grimy means he was covered with dirt. So he was dirty looking person. "Please give him the money, Sethji," the rest of the compartment said. Now all the passengers sitting in the compartment asked the businessman to give him the money because he had helped him at the time of need. "Acha, here are 4 annas for you, porter, and an anna for you, fruit vendor." Now see the mentality, the narrow-mindedness of this Sethji. He was helpless. Somebody came, the fruit vendor came and helped him out of his distress, and he got back his embroidered cap. But see, he was so much narrow-mindedness. He was so much narrow-minded that he offered only 4 annas to the porter who had carried his luggage, and only 1 anna to this fruit vendor. "But I carried 2 big pieces of luggage," the porter wailed. The porter literally cried. He said that "I have carried so much of luggage that you had, and this cannot be the only price. This 4 annas cost The price is not okay. Go, crook. Crook means dishonest person. So the Sethji literally drove him away from that place, thundered at the protesting porter. The Sethji was very much annoyed with his protest. The porter left. He went away. The fruit vendor persisted. The fruit vendor continued to say whatever his opinion was. He said, Sethji, be just. I saved your honorable cap. Now this word is very important. Honorable cap. So, you should know, girls, that in Indian society there are some places or there are some states, there are certain classes of society where the cap that is worn on the head gives the person honor, and that is why it is called the honorable cap. So it was not only the cap, it was not only a piece of cloth, but it was bearing the honor of the businessman, the honor of the Sethji. So he said he was right, very much right in saying that he had got him back his honor. The businessman threw an anna towards him on the platform, but still the businessman was very much disgusted with his behavior. He was really very much narrow-minded. He threw an anna and told him to go away from that place. The guard's whistle blew. The train was about to depart. The vendor looked in through the compartment window. Now the train was about to depart. The whistle was about to blow. The vendor looked in through the compartment window. Still the vendor was trying to get the price of the bananas, the real cost of the bananas, 2 annas. Sethji, do not rob the poor. See, a very sad and depressing statement from this poor vendor. He was poor, and so he said, Sethji, do not rob the poor, because whatever I have done to him, maybe you did not ask me to do that, but you can give me the price of the bananas also. The train had begun to move. The fruit vendor first ran along with it, then got on to the footstep and clung to the window pleading. See the wretched condition of this fruit vendor. See the plight. See the sad condition of this fruit vendor. The train was moving, and along with it, the fruit vendor was also running literally with the train. And he later on, when the train gathered speed, he clung to the window. He was pleading. He was making earnest appeal to the Sethji to give him the price of bananas at least. But Sethji had turned his head away. But the Sethji was not looking at the platform. He was not looking at the passengers on the platform. He was not looking at the fruit vendor also. He had turned his head away. He was looking out of the window at the goods train on the other side. The train had passed the whole length of the platform, and the frustrated vendor finally dropped off. And when the train literally gathered more speed and left the platform, the fruit vendor, lost all hope of getting the price of bananas. Sethji turned round to all of us and began to justify himself. Now, see the mentality of this Sethji. He had done something very wrong to the poor vendor, and now he is up to justifying himself. If he did not want to help me to get my cap back, he should not have offered the monkey the bananas. Now see what the mentality and the narrow-mindedness of this Sethji was. He says that if he didn't want to help me, why did he do that? I didn't ask him to do that. I did not ask him to help. I felt that all the other passengers had sympathy for the poor vendor. Now this narrator or the writer of the story was there, witnessing the whole incident. And he was also feeling sympathy and pity for the poor vendor as well as for this businessman. The whole amusing episode had ended in a bitter sense of grievance against the rich businessman. Now, the incident that had happened earlier was bearing some fun factor, but the whole incident, whole funny, mischievous activity of the monkey rendered into a very tragic incident. So I drew a cartoon of Sethji and showed my drawing to all the other passengers except him. And the narrator drew a cartoon of this businessman and showed it to all the passengers except the businessman. Everyone laughed. The more we laughed, Sethji became the more uncomfortable. So you can well understand, girls, that the story may be apparently funny at the beginning, but it ends with a tragic note. And from this story, we see that there is a class division in the Indian society, and this division is not at all healthy for the poor, because the rich sometimes, not all times, but almost always, they exploit the poor, and the poor cannot rise above in their sad and wretched condition. So that's all, and thank you.